Welcome back to My Conscious Dad, right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Today we are talking about...
Gotta be quick on your toes,
I
Jasmine.
know. Today we're talking about raising conscious children. And before we went on the break, we clarified and said what this looks like. And then second, one of the big things for me was, what does an unconscious child actually look like? And if you didn't hear it, I would definitely go back listen to the podcast later on this week and look at that distinction, because like I had said earlier, I didn't really have a definition for what an unconscious child looks like, because I imagine a 5-year-old, and I can't imagine them being conscious, so I wouldn't expect it. So it's almost like there's no such thing to me as a conscious child under 5.
And most parents, they don't realize their kids are unconscious. And there's a couple of reasons. One, because you could be unconscious yourself and not know what conscious looks like. You could be in denial. You could think that this type of work is foo-foo-y or, third world stuff or whatever. You can make up all this weird stuff about it. But for the most part, I think that most parents want the best for their kids, and even if it means that they have to learn a little bit themselves and grow and that kind of thing. And so as you were talking, I started thinking about a couple of I can probably talk for 10 hours about all the different things that I realize or I've noticed about kids that are unconscious, but we don't have that much time. But I want to pinpoint a couple of them here. One of them is, your kids really unconscious when they don't know how to express themselves. A lot of times I'll sit with kids and they'll feel safe enough and trust me enough to share what they're really feeling, and they really want to tell their parents this, but they're afraid to. And if your kids are really afraid to open up to you and be vulnerable and share their ideas, or maybe even challenge you on your thinking or challenge you on a rule you made or whatever it is, just them suppressing that, I think that most conscious parents, that would break their heart. I know it would me. Knowing that you have something to tell me and you don't feel safe enough to come to me and share that with me or even challenge me on stuff, and that would break my heart. I would want you to be that kind of a competent young woman to be able to go, hey, Dad, I don't think that that's right. Let's talk about this some more. I'll be dancing, doing the happy dance, because that would really kind of fire me up. I would want you to challenge and question, or come to me and say, hey, what you said to me the other day, that really made me sad. Did you really mean that, or were you just upset? Or, those are the kinds of conversations that happen in homes where the parents are conscious and growing and learning and developing. But you have a child that's really suppressed and don't know how to show their emotions. They're going to be suffering, especially as an adult, when they get married and have husbands and wives, or when they have their kids. You're going to talk to your grandkids and they're going to say, I've never seen my dad cry. I've never seen my mom be vulnerable. I've never heard how amazing I am. My dad has never told me that he's proud of me. We've never had a very deep, meaningful moment. That would really break your heart, I think, for most people as a grandparent, to realize, wow, that's the shortcomings of my parenting, where I didn't teach my kid that. Maybe I didn't get to grow to that level to show that my son or daughter that that's what's possible as a parent.
So I want to talk more about, you said for a kid, or for parents, they have to realize that if their kids aren't, able to express themselves, that could be a sign of being unconscious. What are more things that?
Yeah, I just threw down some notes. So I want to kind of talk about some of those notes. I noted down that things to realize. Realize that your children, they come through us, not from us.
What does that mean?
That means that they don't belong to me. My kids don't belong to me. I don't own them. They're not my possession. Our kids, you and your sister and your brother, are children of the world. Your children, your life's children of the community. And for a brief moment, I have the honor to raise you. You're not mine. And I have to remind myself that I'm not your ruler. I'm not your God. I'm not your I'm not your master. I'm here to facilitate a process for you to discover who you are. And my job is to try to help you make sense of who you are and guide you through that from a loving, compassionate place. I can give you love, but I don't want to give you my thoughts. because you have your own thoughts, you have your own mind. God gave you the ability to think for yourself, and I have to remind myself that in those moments that I want you to think the way I think. Even as a coach, even as a life coach, and I, help hundreds of thousands of people create success in their life and have breakthroughs. Even as a coach, I got to put my coaching hat aside sometimes and say, look, I can't be coaching you. Sometimes you need to figure this out on your own, and that you're on your own journey. I
really like everything you just said there, because I think we always talk about the controlling style parent, and we sometimes talk about this new idea of the coaching style parent, and I think that's kind of what, as millennials, maybe, I don't know if it's a millennial thing or it's just me, but I think that's kind of how we would like to be coached, and also or raised as kids, but also how we're going to raise our kids in the future. Because I know that when you're a teen and you're like, oh, I'm never going to do what my parents did, and then you end up kind of becoming your parents. I think I feel very strongly that idea, that way is going to end with millennials. I think from now on, as millennials start becoming parents, they're going to start doing this coaching style parenting, or I would like to believe that, because I can see a lot of those traditions, like of old school controlling style parenting ending, one with my parents and then me and so on, and a lot of my friends, actually, their parents are starting to, as they get older, kind of grow into that grandparent mode already. So, and I feel like they're going into it a lot earlier.
That's the conscious parent. The grandparent mode is you as a conscious parent, as the wise one, realizing with your grandkids, you know what, I wish I could have raised my kids like this, a very confident, assured old man, that I don't have to muscle them to do things, and that frees me up to be able to inspire them, to empower them, to sprinkle seeds, plant seeds in their head. I don't have to try to muscle them. But that's the great wisdom, is can you be that grandma or grandpa as a 20 or 30-year-old parent? Can you be that wise version of yourself in the future now with your kids at age 4, at age 5, 7, 12, 15?
Yeah, I think as the earlier that you do that, the more you're going to adopt that coaching style parenting.
That's right. You become it a little bit more.
Yeah, and I've seen like my friends' parents kind of be, normal parents or controlling parents or whatever you want to define it as, when we were in high school, and now that, we're turning 18, 19, 20, 21, all our young adult age, I'm seeing them turn into that grandparent mode, which I wouldn't expect people to do until their kids are, 28, 29, whatever, and start having their own kids, which in that case, they only become grandparent mode to the grandkids and not their kids. They still teach their kids, they still nag their kids, even though they're parents themselves. But I'm seeing it now, so I'm getting really excited, and I'm proud of those parents, and or not proud's not the word. I admire those parents, and I want to acknowledge them and say that that's what we've been looking for this whole time.
I agree. Millennials are yearning for a new kind of parenting where you're not trying to muscle them, but create a safe space for them to figure out who they are. Some of the other things I wrote down to realize is that you may house the bodies of your children, but not their souls. Their souls belong to them, and they have their own individual souls with their own wisdom and their own truth about who they are. And your job is to not taint that. Don't taint their spirit. Don't hurt them to the point where you damage that little voice down deep inside that's reminding them, that's singing to them, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. And your job is to not get in there and kind of ruin that process. And then realize that your kids are on their own journey. They have their own journey when you gave them life, or you co-created them, and they have their own life purpose. They're on their journey to figure out their own purpose and the destiny of their own destiny of who they get to choose to become in the world. I want to become this, I want to become that. And you get to step back and kind of let them choose for themselves, but you got to teach them the power of choice, and your job is to teach them things but not get in the way and kind of ruin that natural process for them. So speaking about getting things in the way, I got also some notes I wrote down about how you can get in their way so it makes sense. So one of the ways you can get in the way is to squash their own individuality and their uniqueness. You getting in there and, oh, notice you put an earring or you tattooed yourself. Why are you doing that? And do you really need to do that? And people are trying, when they're young, they're trying to figure out who they are, and they're trying and testing different ways to see if they get validation or approval, or, can I get a rise out of my mom? And, so it's all gameplay. Your job is to sit back and try to figure out how to master surrendering the control and having it look your way, and let them figure out, who their own individual self is.
Yeah, I remember when I was, I'm not even younger, just a couple years ago, I got my nose pierced without telling you guys, and I was already older, so I was like, I don't have to ask my parents. So me and my friends went to this little tattoo shop and got our nose pierced, and then I was like, oh my God, I have to go home this weekend, because I was at school, and I was like, I have to go home this weekend, and I don't know what my parents are going to say. So I texted my mom and I said, hey, by the way, I'm coming home this weekend and I got my nose pierced. Can you tell Dad for me? And so, I was scared, but also at the same time, I didn't get why did you do that? From my parents, I did get I got questions like, what made you want to do that? And just that right there, even though it wasn't confrontational or anything, I was already like, I felt like the overwhelmingness of, oh my God, here they go kind of thing. So, and I had to go through that process to look at myself and be like, you know what? Everybody has their nose pierced. This really isn't me. It was more just me unconsciously, or, trying to be young, or whatever it was that I made that decision. But I also know that when I made that decision, you know what, I'm going to take this out and let the hole close up, and I don't want to have piercings on my face now. When I made that decision, I was like, oh great, Mom and Dad are going to be like, I told you you weren't going to want that, so I think it is important to let them kind of do their thing. I'm not saying you don't have to ask them why or ask them questions, but do consider that even asking them, even if you say, hey, that looks nice, why did you get it? That already has a connotation to it in itself. And sometimes, especially as young adults, we make decisions like, I don't have to ask my mom and dad anymore. I don't live with them, or I don't need their permission. But we still are scared to go home and visit and have this thing that we made this decision that we were so confident in before, and then come and we turn into little kids again, like, what are they going to say?
And I think the best way to handle that as a parent is to, one, allow them to be okay with the choice they made without being in resistance to that or making them bad and wrong. And then at a later time, a day later, a week later, a month later, then you open up a safe space to kind of ask them the questions afterwards, after they've gone through that process of realizing that you've accepted it and that you're not going to judge them for it. And then you can ask the questions, why did you make that decision? What made you, what compelled you to do that? And to help you make sense of why you did it. Because you could have done it just because. You could have done it to be like everyone else or to fit in and not even realize consciously why you did it. So our job is to help you see that. But sometimes we don't know how to separate the accepting it and then at a later time ask the questions to help you. We as parents, we do it all in one, and it contradicts what we're trying to do. Like if I say, that looks nice, but why did you do that? It's like I just stepped all over the part of me that is accepting and giving you that free space. So we can step on our own toes sometimes. Some of the other things that get in the way is getting frustrated when they don't do what we want, think the way we think, choose the way that we would choose. And at times we make them bad and wrong for that. When they don't think the way we think and do what we do, we're not trying to create mini-me's. Don't make your kids be you or do the things that you wish you could have done and live the life. Let them make their own choices, fall down, learn from the mistakes. They're on their own journey, and that's the biggest part of helping your kids become more conscious is and even telling them that, you telling them, look, I want you to go out there and make those choices. You're on your own journey. Even just telling them once a month, you're on your own journey. That's all they hear. You're on your own journey. You're on your journey. You're kind of programming them and kind of giving them permission to navigate and decide how powerful they are by their choices and navigating their own course.
I like that you said giving permission, because at least for me, I've talked about this before, I can admit that I need validation from my parents, my friends, or whoever. So when I make decisions, even though I want to act all big and bad, like, oh, I'm going to do this anyways, I still go, hey, Dad, I'm going to do this. What do you think about this? And whether you say yes or no, or I think that's a great idea, let me know how that turns out, or no, you're an idiot, whatever you say, it's going to affect ultimately going to affect my decision.
Yeah, and the more conscious version of me and when I'm really in my spirit, I'm only giving my insight of maybe some of the things that I've learned, and I'm unattached to what you choose. But sometimes I'm not always as conscious in those moments, and sometimes I favor, and when I'm responding, I'm favoring certain thing versus the other. But I got to learn how to prepare it in a way they go, well, I chose something like that, and it came back to bite me, but that might not necessarily be you. And I got to give you the opportunity to make that choice, even if I feel like it's the wrong one, or it's heading down a path that's going to come back to hurt you or not be beneficial for you. And I got to trust that that's your journey and be there to comfort you, not sit there and go, see, you should have done that, and not make you bad and wrong for it. And that's part of the learning curve. Some of the other things that we do as parents when we get in the way of that is at times we project our own stuff onto them. And what I mean by stuff is our own fears, our own doubts, our own insecurities, our own expectations, our own judgments. It's very easy as a parent to project that onto our kids, and we use it in code. Like we'll say little things like, well, that's what you get, or we do little stabs. We project all of that stuff onto our kids, and we don't realize that we're tainting them from deciding that they're the creators of their own life, and then they get to make those decisions.
Yeah, and when you're explaining that, I imagine passive aggressive comments like, we hate that. Let me just start by saying
I get it.
We hate it because, or we acknowledge it, we see it, and we could see you doing it because we do it. Well, Andrew's laughing because probably I'm right. I hate that. That's like my biggest thing as a young adult is one, passive aggressive comments in general, but two, when it comes from my parents, because it's like, just say what you want to say.
Yeah, like, oh, I did this. Okay, I guess, right? There's ways that you can subtly let them know that you're not okay with it, instead of going, okay, well, we'll see how that works out. I hope it works out for you. Like totally being neutral about it and not being righteous about having it look my way. Another way we get in the way and we taint that is our children are not us, nor are they meant to be us. So don't try to make them your mini-me. They're meant to be an open possibility to create themselves anew, brand new, from scratch in each new moment. Also to discover who they are for themselves. You have to let them discover and choose who they are choosing to be, and to discover their authentic self. That's really the journey. And then also to discover what they're passionate about, ultimately leading them to discover their purpose, and then living a purpose-driven life. To me, that's the ultimate dream, is to be able to live that life that I was intended to live, and the purpose of why I'm here in this world.
And for the people who are trying to, or the parents who do want their kids to be like them and are trying to shape them to be like them, I guess the only thing I can think to say to that is, do you really want your kids to be like you? Do you really think that? No. I don't want you to talk down to yourself or anything.
I want you to be a thousand greater versions than I can ever be.
Right.
That's my dream.
I hope that at least when I'm a parent and my kids are older, I can look at myself and say, do I really want my kids to be like me? Am I really that great that if they were any better than me, they would not be better off?
Well, you've already superseded me. The expectations.
Thank you.
You're an amazing young lady that just impresses me every time I see you, and I open my eyes to what you're up to and who you're being in the world. I'm very proud of you, and I want you to know that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We had to take a quick break, so stay tuned for more of My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Welcome back to My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Today we are talking about raising conscious children, and if you missed any of it, please go to hometownstation.com and find our podcast later on this week, and listen back to what we have to say. I really urge you to. I just recently started doing it, so that's why I'm pitching it so much, because I really find a lot of value in it. So if you missed any of it, go back and find it, or if you want to hear it again, it's going to be up. So today we're talking about raising conscious children. Before we went on the break, I wanted to jump into the parent insight side. So you as a dad and as a coach, what can you tell the parents that are listening?
Well, first of all, as I say this, I'm really saying this to myself, because I need to hear it for the 100th time or 300th time, because I'm not invincible myself, and I'm not where I want to be ultimately, because I can always grow and continue to be more conscious and more aware and more loving and more patient and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to be speaking as though I'm speaking to myself, because this is what I need to hear too. So I wrote down some notes. One of the notes that I need to keep remembering is what our children yearn from us the most is really to be validated. They need to know who they are. They need to be seen. They need to be recognized. They need to be loved unconditionally. I think one of the greatest things you can do as a parent when their kids are young, and well, actually all ages, but more importantly when they're young, is to just see your kids. Let them catch you watching them. And there's this great thing about allowing yourself to be seen and be recognized by someone else is a moment where you realize for yourself that you exist, that you're here, that you're important. So, when your son or daughter ties their shoe for the very first time, when they finally get it after 20 attempts, and then their excitement, they look over to see who's watching. Who do you think they're looking for?
Mom and dad.
Yeah, they want to be caught. They want to be, looking when they're enjoying their happiness. They want to look over and see you looking at them, going, "I see you, bud. Good job. I'm so proud of you." They need that, and when we're not around to do that because we're working so hard, or we're there but we're not present, and we don't see those things. They miss that authentic recognition that they're yearning for.
But do you think parents could be recognizing or approving the wrong thing? I don't want to say the wrong thing, but the thing I'm imagining is maybe giving them recognition for who they are and who they're being instead of the things that they do. Yes, it's great if you get an A or you win the spelling bee, but there's other things that I think could be recognized and acknowledged to create a confident person instead of an egotistical adult.
Yeah, what you're talking about is the be, do, have. And so be mindful that the doing and the having that they create is not as important as who they're being. And so if you're acknowledging them and seeing them for who they are rather than what they do and what they have, I think is going to create a real solid human being that's going to validate the context and the confidence and assurance of who they are. Some of the other parent insight I have is to raise conscious children ourselves. We have to live conscious ourselves. So you're going to have to walk the talk. You can't just speak that, but you got to really evolve and learn and practice some of this mindfulness and awareness and being present and all that good stuff. You got to be doing your own journey as well. Also, it requires us to be truly present with them, being there in the moment, cell phones off, you're locked eye to eye, and you're really just lost in the magic of them speaking, and you're just observing everything about them. You're in awe of who they are when you're having a conversation or sharing, and really just being present with them in that moment. Also, to be ultra observant, noticing everything about them, how they think, the way they walk, how they eat their food, not from a judgment place though, like, hey, I'm noticing, do you have to smack your lips every time you're chewing? But notice and observe it from a neutral place, not trying to fix them, but just noticing, observing. Noticing what makes them happy, what makes them sad, what makes them uncomfortable, and then help them make sense of those feelings, like asking them questions like, why do you feel like that? Where does that come from? Be inquisitive, be more interested in why they're doing it, and just you're not asking a million questions, because you'll get the eye roll where the mom, dad, there you go again, trying to figure me out. And it's like, no, I'm just genuinely interested, and I want to help you understand it too, so we need to have that dialogue.
Yeah, and we've had many conversations about what those questions look like, because again, I'm going to advocate for the teen that gets the judgy questions or the backhanded questions kind of thing. So go find our podcast online and find those, because we've said a lot. We can make a whole show about how to ask your kids questions effectively.
Yeah, and then what that would require from you is to be really connected to your own spirit, which means you got to shut off your ego and the fear and all that kind of stuff, and really be connected to your own spirit, so that frees you up to ask those questions and be engaging and be interested in them. Also, to encourage communication about their feelings a lot. Like often, how do you feel? What's coming up for you? You have to learn those questions to draw that out from them. Another thing is committed listening. You got to really work on learning how to be a committed listener. You're attentive. You're being the space for them to share. without judgment, without giving them advice, but just learning how to be a committed listener. You have to learn how to admit your own mistakes. And I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm hoping that you're learning a lot when I come to you and go, wow, I just realized that I didn't trust you, or I'm realizing that, I'm letting my own fear get in the way. And I'm hoping that makes a difference when I'm admitting some of my own mistakes that I made as a parent.
Yeah, seeing you do that and being raised around that, it's a lot easier for me. Especially, for example, here at work, I make a lot of mistakes, just like anybody else. And it's very, very easy for me to go to my boss and say, hey, my bad, I messed up.
Yeah. Also, loving yourself is important. By you loving yourself, you teach your kids indirectly how to love themselves without telling them that. And we ran out of time.
Oh, we're out of time.
But we got Bruno Mars taking us out on a beautiful Friday. We hope you guys enjoy your Friday. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here and being a contribution to you.
Thank you for joining us today on My Conscious Dad. We're here every Friday from 12 to 1 p.m. right here on your hometown station, AM 1220, KHTS.